The Detroit Tigers play another close ball game against the Cleveland Guardians. They bring home the win, but it wasn't without a lot of drama. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, July 11th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. So check out Booking.com for your stay today. The Detroit Tigers win 5-4 over the Cleveland Guardians in Comerica Park. They do play a ball game. That alone was newsworthy. I think if you asked everybody on Wednesday morning or Tuesday night if that ball game was going to be played, I think most people would have said no. And yet the baseball gods decided that this ball game would be played. There was no rain. Mother Nature probably decided more than the forces in the baseball world. But regardless, the Detroit Tigers do play and do win against the first place Cleveland Guardians. They are now 44-49 on the season with only a few games left until the All-Star break. Offense solves all. And they scored 5 runs. They didn't score 15, right? This wasn't some offensive explosion. But no one thought this was going to be a high-powered offense going into the season, right? No one expected. The expectations were not, you know what? This is going to be a juggernaut. This is going to be a high-flying. We're going to be up there toward the top of the league in offense. Not a soul on the planet expected the Tigers to be that going into the season. The bar is low. We're not asking for the world here. And we talked about it yesterday, right? The Chris Brown tweet and the Jim Costa tweet, right? The stats that they put out there about the Tigers being over 500 when they score 1 run and being on a 99 to 100 win pace when they score 2 or more runs, right? The bar is so low. And no one is asking them to be that high-flying offense. If they can just be competent, they can play competitive ball because of how good their pitching has been and the fact that they have an all-star now in the middle of their lineup. And that's what we saw in this ball game. 5-4 victory, made you sweat it out there at the end. We will talk all about the 9th inning and the theatrics surrounding what was the 9th inning of this ball game a little bit later. But when we started, and we're going to kick it off with what went right, obviously, because it's a win, I want to start off by talking about the early offense, right? That's something that is so important in the modern game of baseball with how good pitching is, right? If you can jump and pounce on somebody early and either knock them out of the game early, which didn't happen in this one. Bybee still went, 6-7 innings. But if you can just pop someone in the mouth early, get off to an early lead, and then rely on a guy on the Tigers side of things, and Reese Olson, that has been really solid this year, right? Obviously, the Tigers were the home team in this game. So the first time Olson took the bump, it was a 0-0 game. But him going out there in the second, right, with a 2-0 lead is huge and does a lot, not only for a team, but for a starting pitcher as well. So wanted to just point out the early offense, the concept of scoring early in ball games, just in general, being a huge plus for this baseball team in this one. If we want to talk about some individuals, Colt Keith, yet again, that's a walk in this ball game, as well as a smoked ball into the opposite field gap, that left center field gap. And that was a fastball up in the zone. And I know I've talked a lot about his timing with fastballs, still slapped it the other way. But if you're going to get results, I don't really care, right? I'm not going to nitpick a RBI triple in the first inning. But I think there's a difference between slapping a fastball the opposite way and running versus I'm going to turn and crush a four-seam fastball like he's doing with sliders and changeups. That's all. That doesn't mean that he can't be effective, and it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just a different approach. And I think that the fully unlocked version, we'll call it, of Colt Keith, him being fully arrived at the major league level, is going to be when he starts turning on those fastballs. But this was another instance of his approach that he's talked about, right? Where he is okay with slapping fastballs the opposite way and turning on off speed, working out really well. And again, there's nothing wrong with that approach. It is working very, very well for him. He's on an 8-game hitting streak and is hitting like over 400 in July or something ridiculous. Definitely not here to criticize what he's been doing at the plate lately. It's just, again, it's all coming together is my point. And he's slowly making adjustments and improving on things slowly but surely, step by step. And I think once he takes that next step, I guess I'm really trying to hype him up more and say there's even more of a reason to be excited. Just like, wait. Like if you think this is, him at his best and him he is on a hot streak, but him at his peak, like just wait. Once he gets the fastball timing really, really down, it's going to be what was the Dustin Pedroia quote back in the day? Get ready for the laser show. That's how I feel. Just wait, baby. But he's been absolutely fantastic and continues to be in this game. Was certainly no different. We have Matt Vierling hitting a home run as well. I was wondering, and I didn't talk about it on the show. I don't think. Maybe I did. I don't know. But one of the things that I was wondering lately was, when were they going to move on from Vierling at leadoff, right? Because his on-base percentage isn't good. It's like 284. Like that's not a good OBP whatsoever. I understand he's got a little bit of a power threat this year. He's quietly becoming. We'll kind of talk about that here in a second. But also he has the speed. And like, I understand you want someone like that at the top of the lineup, but you also want someone who consistently gets on base. And he just hasn't been that. And I think that it's so fascinating the season that he is having. I know we've talked about it a few times here, but like his OPS is 5 points higher than it was last year. So not significantly better, but it is slightly better, but it's in the same ballpark, no pun intended. But how he's getting to that similar OPS is very different. Last year, 261 average, an OBP of just under 330 at 329, but the slug was only 388. This year, he's hitting sub 250, has an OBP of 284, like I said, but the slug is almost 440. So it's like just this weird thing of like, okay, well, last year he was a slap ball hitter that hit for a decent average and got on base an okay amount. And this year, he's not hitting for average. His average since the middle of June is honestly pretty atrocious, if we're being completely honest. It was like 170 for a little bit there. I think it's improved a little bit lately, but he's not Tony Gwynn, that's for sure. And then the OBP obviously suffers because of that, and he's not drawing a ton of walks this season either. But we're like at all. His walk rate is now sub 5%. He's really not walking. But we've untapped this power that no one has ever seen from Matt Vierling at any point in his Major League Baseball career. So, like, which do you want, right? The OPS, if you're valuing the contact he's making and whatnot, it's about equal to what he did last year, but it's just a way, way, way different way or route of getting there. I think it's really fascinating. So I kind of expected him to move off from the top of the lineup and be more of a middle of the lineup type of hitter for the team, but I expected them to maybe wait until after the All-Star break. So it was really interesting to me to see that move happen and for him to hit a home run. Clearly it worked out a little bit, his only hit, as he tends to do lately. So I don't know what to make of everything anymore. Every week, he seems to be a different player, and he's just going through a lot of mechanical changes and whatnot lately. He continues to just confuse the ever-living heck out of me. And I just wanted to really paint that picture because he's such a different player than he was last season at the plate. It's really, really wild to me. So let's keep the ball rolling. Got a few more players I want to talk about on the side of things that went right. We're going to talk about Reese Olson. Then we'll get into what went wrong and stuff. We will do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you all today about our friends over at Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you can get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all of the shopping for you, and it's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. You can easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. I just give my stylist my size, my style, my budget preferences, and order boxes when I want and how I want as well. There's no subscription required. They send 5 just for me pieces plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works and I send back the rest. It's really that simple. My stylist always sends just right pieces that fit correctly and make my fit on point. It really is like they can read my mind and just completely dress me for me. Essentially, it really is awesome. So, yeah, and again, if you don't love something, you can always send it back. So, style that makes you feel as good as you look. Now's the best time to get in on the action at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $100 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not include kid fixes. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will be back tomorrow recapping the series finale against the Cleveland Guardians, as well as talking about anything else around the Tigers organization. Because we played today, we're probably just going to have an extra episode this week. I'm still trying to game plan my week and whatnot, but we might have an episode on, a 2 on Friday or another one on Saturday, talking about the MLB draft and kind of previewing you for that, which is Sunday. I don't just want to not talk about that. I want to just kind of ramble about it for half an hour. So we'll do that at some point this week. So sorry if you're not a fan of me and you're getting an extra show this week. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today, the free 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube from all of our great hosts here at Locked On, giving you the biggest stories in sports. You can subscribe for free on YouTube or check it out for free in the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Talking about what went right still, because the Tigers won a ball game. Reese Olson was, I think, solid. I want to wrap up the offense first, actually. I jumped the gun a little bit. Riley Green is such a stud. 2 hits in this ball game, and I think he's earning every bit of that label as an all-star. And like we went through the month-by-month OPS earlier this week. Like, it's so fascinating. It's just May. Like, that's it. May is the only month where he wasn't absolutely destroying the baseball. And if it wasn't for the month of May, he'd have an OPS over 900. I know you can't play that game. We talked about it at the time. It's a slippery slope. You can't just give away bad at-bats. They all count for a reason. But I think if he doesn't have another May in the second half, we could be talking about a dude who has a really, really, really incredible season for your Detroit Tigers. Biggest thing, just keep staying healthy, baby. Okay, let's talk pitching. So Reese Olson, one of the things, he goes 6 innings, gets a quality start, goes 6 innings, gives up 3 runs, only 3 strikeouts only for him. That's a low number for his standards. Really, I didn't think the outing was bad at all. He had a couple of hangers. Like, that's really it. I didn't think he wasn't sharp. I didn't think he was bad or was struggling mightily out there. His stuff looked about as good as it always does. He had swing and miss stuff, pretty much like he always does, right? A lot of whiffs on the sliders, pretty much like he always does. Like, the Guardians just hit mistakes really well. That's how they've gotten to a 57-34 record, right? They take advantage of mistakes, and that is kind of what happened. Even like the home run to oh my gosh, what's his name? Schneemann, right? The BYU product, Schneemann. Even the homer to him was like a fastball out of the strike zone. Like, really, it was just, earlier in the game, he left a couple of sliders right over the heart of the plate, hung them. And the thing that is, I don't want to say dangerous, but the game that he plays is he throws all of his pitches to both handedness, right? We've talked about that a lot. So it's, when he does miss his spots to a lefty and he throws that slider, if it hangs, it can get crushed. And it doesn't happen often. He's having a phenomenal season, but that's the dangerous game you play when you throw sliders to opposite hand hitters, right? Whether a righty or a lefty. That's just why not very many people do it. But it's good enough for him where he absolutely can and should. This isn't me saying he shouldn't do it. It's just he left a couple up in the zone and they got turned on, and that was pretty much it. The only other thing I really want to talk about with Olsen was him getting attacked early in counts this game was very, very obviously the game plan from Cleveland. And the broadcast, Benetti and Petrie did a great job of talking about it. But it's something I do want to bring up here because I wonder if that's going to be a theme we see against the Tigers pitching staff in general in the second half. The Detroit Tigers are in the top 3 in all of baseball when it comes to, as a team, not any individual, the entire team pitching staff is in the top 3 in baseball in most frequent first pitch strike percentage, right? So that first pitch is in the strike zone more than just about every other team in baseball. There's only 2 or 3 teams ahead of them, depending on, what happens after Tuesday or Wednesday night's ball games, rather. So I wonder if we're going to see that more often. And if we do, I want to know how the Tigers adjust because they have been so publicly vocal about the early strikes, getting ahead in counts, working ahead, making sure the first pitch you throw is in the strike zone. They've been so keen on that I wonder if there is any chance that they would. I don't think they're going to waver off of it, but how they adjust to make sure that they can continue doing it when teams do this. I think that's something I'm very fascinated in how they're going to adjust in the second half, post All-Star break here coming up. So that's something to keep an eye out for. I don't think that's just a Reese Olson thing. I think this is every starter on the team thing. And I'm really fascinated with how the Tigers and Fetter and Lund and Nieves are going to pivot from that if it becomes a reoccurring theme. So something to watch out for. Let's talk about what went wrong in this one. Alex Faedo, it's not a very long list, by the way. Again, they only gave up 4 runs. 3 of them were Reese Olson, and I'm not too mad at his outing. So I think Alex Faedo certainly and unfortunately belongs on here. And so he goes 1 inning, gives up the 1 run, 2 walks, just couldn't throw a strike, unfortunately. And, the bullpen management was interesting there. I don't have an issue with it, and that's really easy for me to say after a win and after it ended up working out at the end. Hindsight's 2020. But look, you already used Holton. You had a lot of lefties due up, and Jason Foley, A, has not been good, period, in his last 3 or 4 outings, and B, struggles a lot more against lefties than he does even righties, who he's also struggled with. He struggled with everybody his last few outings, but it's particularly not great against lefties, and they had a lot of lefties due up. So I don't, and obviously they go to Faedo because they already used Holton. They're not going to go to Joey Wentz in high leverage, and Andrew Chafin has been pitching a lot lately, including just the previous game. So if Chafin was never going to enter the ball game, then you kind of had to go to somebody that you trusted against lefties and you hoped could get some swing and miss. This bullpen doesn't have anybody that can get swing and miss consistently. Nobody. No one. So you kind of had to go to Faedo, weirdly. And again, like I understand the optics of that, but we've talked about it a lot. I don't think that's an indictment of like, oh, that was a poor managerial decision. I think this bullpen is just not very good at the present moment, hasn't been for a while, and you're kind of just hosed no matter what in some situations. That's why Shelby Miller got a save this week. So it's tough, but I really don't hate the decision. And then once you got to a point in the lineup where, you could face some righties, especially Hedges, who is just an awful hitter in general, whether it's a righty or lefty on the mound, then you bring out Foley and you win the ball game, right? I think that was the plan, was try to get Faedo out there, get him as deep into the game as you can. And if it doesn't work, then, pull the safety valve and bring out Foley to face some righties. And that's what they did. And thank goodness it got him a win. But that certainly did not go very well for Alex Faedo. And I just continues to be a theme of pitcher does well in low leverage, gets promoted to high leverage, struggles, gets kicked back to low, cycle repeats itself forever, and I start crying. Okay, let's talk about base running, which was absolutely atrocious in this baseball game. We will do that right after this. I'm going to talk to you all about our friends over at Booking.com. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore the U.S. cities that you always secretly wanted to learn more about, but you maybe didn't want people to know that because they are your rivals' cities. Look, a Yankees fan can go to Boston and have a fantastic time watching a ball game, hopefully watching their Yankees win. And then also, I don't say that as a Tigers fan. I say that as from the Yankees fan perspective, obviously. And then you can go and enjoy some fantastic lobster and fall in love with the beautiful city of Boston in their waterfront hotel. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many great choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or on the Booking.com app. Booking.com. Yeah. Also got to talk to you all about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. They take all the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Flash deals, again, exclusive in-app deals only for Game Time users. And the closer you get to first pitch, the prices go down. They have zone deals, which is one of my favorite features. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seat, and you can save a couple of bucks that way. And then obviously they have the Game Time guarantee. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take all the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all so much for tuning in as always. Talking about this 5-4 Tigers victory over the Cleveland Guardians. Talking about what went wrong in this game. It was certainly not a perfectly played ball game that they almost blew at the very end. We'll talk about that in a second as well. One of the really frustrating parts of this game, probably the most frustrating, I would venture to say for most people, was the atrocious base running. We'll start with the Gio Urshela play. I understand I appreciate the effort, right? And I appreciate the baseball IQ of that moment. I think that's a play Javi probably does as well, and he probably gets there. Gio Urshela is absurdly slow. I think part of that probably has to do with the major injury he had last season, unfortunately, but he is not fast. And so him doing that in that situation, I don't love. I really don't. Schneeman's not a bad defender out there in right field either. I don't. And again, hindsight's 2020. It's really easy for me to say that. Who knows if he got there? I'd probably be like, oh, what a great heads up play. But at the end of the day, it wasn't even really a close play at second. Don't love it. Okay, don't need to push that in that situation and get an extra out tagged on you on the inning. You lose all your base runners in the inning. Just really a loss of a lot of momentum. But the really atrocious one was obviously Joey Cora sending Matt Vierling in a play where they showed the bird's eye view. I genuinely think the ball was close to being in I don't remember who made that play, whether it was Jimenez or I don't know, somebody else in the infield. They were kind of scattered across the infield, but whoever, second base, shortstop, whoever made that play for Cleveland, I think the ball was almost in his glove in the infield when Cora was sending him. And that's another play where, like, the throw was offline, and I appreciate you trying to be like, oh, the throw's offline, Matt Vierling's fast, let's run it, baby. I appreciate the attempt, but that is absolutely asinine. That is, this team is aggressive, and they're going to be on the base paths, that is, and they're going to be toward the top. And Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic pointed out that they have made 9 outs at home plate specifically this season, which is tied for the 8th most in baseball. They're always going to be toward the top of the league. I think part of that is all of it is AJ's philosophy, where he believes, you know what, we're going to put the pressure on the defense. make them have to make perfect relays and perfect throws. That's why whenever there's a man on third and any amount of outs, they run on contact right. That's something that has gained the Tigers a lot of runs, and no one likes to talk about when it works. And there's a ground ball to the shortstop, but he has to backhand it just enough to get him out. Like that's happened a lot this year. But it also leads to plays at the plate where you're leaving the guy at third out to dry. I understand that, and there's a give and take inherently with that system. This was not that. This was absolutely atrocious. That was undefendable. I have no clue. It's one of those things where you, at first, you go through like so many different emotions, right? Like it happens and you go, oh my goodness, run, then. And then he gets thrown out by 10 feet. And you go, okay, and you're furious, and you go, what the heck is Cora doing? And then you see the replay, and you laugh. Like you legitimately go through 3 different emotions in the span of like 30 seconds because it's just so ridiculous. So, and that's not the first, second, third, or fourth time that has happened with Cora this season. He has had some just ridiculous sends so far in 2024, his first season as Tigers third base coach. I don't know. I don't know what happens in the, behind the scenes. I don't know if AJ is like, dude, what on earth are you doing? Or if he genuinely is like he is to the public, where he's like, oh no, we want to be aggressive, whatever. That's going to happen sometimes. I think he probably says that in public to not put a ton of heat on any of his coaching staff. And then behind closed doors is like, dude, what on earth was that? At least I hope that that's the case. But it was dreadful in this game. It was really, really bad. And you're not good enough of an offense. You've been better lately. You're not a good enough offense to just give away runs, obviously, but even on a lesser scale, just 90 feet. You can't afford that. We talk about the giving up 90 feet so much on the defensive side of the ball on this show. Offensively, it's the same thing. Okay, let's talk stuff. Andy Ibanez, pinch hit home run. This can probably be what went right as well, but it was just 1 AB. But it ended up being the difference in the ball game. So good for Andy Ibanez, the pinch hit home run. I if you follow me on X or Twitter or whatnot, I tweet out every time Andy Ibanez does really anything against a lefty. I tweet out the Barry Bonds graphic where Barry Bonds has like a 750 slugging percentage and 140 RBIs and 70 homers or whatever, and say, oh, this is Andy Ibanez, and he has an OPS over 1,000, I think, on a season against lefties. Man, like he mashes against lefties. And I think in that situation too, Colt Keith, we'll talk about this next time we have an off day, maybe over the All-Star break or something. Colt Keith has struggled mightily defensively at second base. I think he's actually been better the last week or so, but as a whole, it's been really rough. And Andy Ibanez is a pretty solid defender over there. So I think even if he doesn't hit the home run there, just replacing him in the 9th inning with a lead with a better defender is probably something the Tigers want to do. But again, he hit the homer and they ended up winning by 1 run. So very important run that Andy Ibanez scored there. Crazy 9th inning just in general. You had the huge out at home, right? Where you get him in the rundown. You get the out at home that pretty much wins you the ball game in hindsight. Then you have Alex Faedo who spikes, I guess that was before. He spikes a ball into Jake Rogers. It seems like once a game, there's just like a really costly, or at least lately, there's been a really costly pass ball / wild pitch. And not all of those are the catcher's fault. It's easy to look at the catcher because he's the person that's supposed to stop in those. But maybe I'm a catcher defender, but not all of those are catcher's faults. It's very situational to situation based. But Faedo spikes the heck out of a fastball and ends up being a wild pitch, pass ball, whatever it is. Runners advance. The umpire absolutely screws over Jason Foley after he enters the ball game on what should have ended the ball game, a strike right at the knees. And then Javi throws a ball halfway down the first baseline, and Gio has to come off the bag and tag the runner. I watched this game. I had dinner with my old man tonight. I had dinner with my dad and watched this game with him, and I just dropped an F-bomb. And I was like, what the heck is happening? And then I looked around, waited. It's like in football when you wait for a flag after a touchdown. Like I was like, I have to wait and like kind of digest and comprehend what just happened. And then, everything was good. And my dad laughed at me, but like just a wild ending to that ball game. Definitely made you sweat. Also had an umpire injury, which is not common. I hope that he's okay. Justin Henry Malloy fouled the ball off and it hit the home plate umpire right in the hand. I think his hand's probably broken. It smoked his left hand. And you had to run this Major League Baseball game with a 3-man umpire crew, which is not something you see very often these days. And they're going to have to fly another umpire out there for Game 4 on Thursday. That's an afternoon game as well. So they're going to have to figure that out, assuming his hand is broken. So wishing him a speedy recovery there. That sucks and looked like it hurt a ton. That was, slight delay in the ball game. So there you go. I mean, the Tigers in their last 8 games are now 6-2, and the only 2 losses are Maeda's last 2 starts, right? And like we've talked about Maeda a lot. We're not going to make this whole episode about Maeda too, obviously, but you're playing some pretty darn good ball lately, and your offense is not absolutely atrocious, and there's a direct correlation in that, obviously. Right. Very Captain Obvious statement there, but 6-2 in your last 8, we will gladly take. And again, the one you kind of were you sent it to extras, right? It was on the table to win that game. So playing good ball lately. And now you have a chance to take 3 of 4 against the first place Cleveland Guardians on Thursday afternoon here. Right now, the pitcher that's in line for Cleveland, according to MLB.com, is Spencer Howard. Spencer Howard goes 4 innings and gives up 5 runs pretty much every time he goes out there. Dude has a 5.6 ERA on the season and a career ERA of just under 7. He does not go deep into ball games. He's been a reliever at times, right? He's not like a penciled in, like this guy's in our rotation starter, but they sent Tristan McKenzie down. Bieber's hurt, right? Like they've just had to do with what they have. I don't expect Howard to go 5 or 6 innings unless he dices the Tigers lineup, which would make me very sad. But this is another opportunity to get some offense going early. And yeah, you're going to have Jack Flaherty on the bump for your Detroit Tigers, his first start in a while. They obviously skipped him his last time through the rotation because of the back thing. So hopefully you can have a good outing. Again, Howard versus Flaherty, and with how your offense has looked lately, you really have no reason why you shouldn't be taking 3 or 4 from Cleveland here. And you were, again, extra innings / Maeda away from taking 4. You've been playing good ball, and that's awesome. Really quickly before we wrap up, Sawyer Gipson-Long underwent hip surgery. Basically, the conversation was very similar to the Mize back surgery. He's already going through Tommy John. We might as well fix anything else wrong with him physically as well. And so had a hip issue that had been bothering him. The Tigers and him have been monitoring it for a while. And so they decided to go through surgery. Hopefully, again, do the same thing Mize did. Get any surgeries you want done while you're recovering from TJ, and you're not going to pitch it all this year anyway. And we can have Sawyer Gipson-Long back fully healthy next year. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.